Chapter 9 The Hidden Trumpet Call. Negad had been waiting for Nekemabed's arrival since his private meeting with Or. It was with great anticipation that he welcomed Nekemabed to Adam, for he had never seen Or in any of his distinct persons. The two entered Adam's communication headquarters. It was here that the prophecy's trumpets were housed. The Abirs had found a clear, locked case holding the two seamless silver trumpets in the outer edge after Or taught the eternal tree prophecy and warned the angelic beings about false gifts. Negad was given the responsibility of the trumpets. For many, the knowledge of the case on Adam was a tangible link to the promise of their eternal sealing after the eating of the eternal tree. The trumpets were to be used in a series of events starting with the fulfillment of the first prophecy, the eternal tree assembly on afar. "Here are the trumpets," Negad said as he handed Nekemabed the case. "The case is sealed. I cannot open it. Negad, this is your assignment. I am only here to assist you. Try to open the case now." "But," started Negad, as he found that the trumpet case was no longer locked. He opened it and stared at the trumpets, perplexed at what to do next. "It is simply my job to guide you. Take a trumpet and hand the other to me. We will blow together on my count. Once I stop, you must hold your call for 7 more counts, for my call is dependent on yours. I will let you know when to stop. Remember, you will need to wait to hear the second trumpet's call here on Adam before collecting your men and departing for afar." Negad carefully handed a horn to Nekemabed and took for himself the second one. On Nekemabed's lead, the two pressed the mouthpieces firmly against their lips, and then on the third nod they blew a long note. Nekemabed stopped, counted 7 beats, and signaled for Negad to lower his horn. Nekemabed and Negad had finished their call to the assembly. Nekemabed put down his trumpet and vanished. Immediately he was in the waves of afar in spirit form, arriving there with Kohengal before anyone else traveled from Elinthial. Nekemabed's presence warmed the waves and produced a sweet, inviting fragrance ready to welcome all the angelic beings from Elinthial, and later those from the Stones of Fire. "What a lovely sound, but who is supposed to hear that?" commented Rachel. "Shh," said Miklehi, "just watch." Rashawn looked up only for a moment after Nekemabed and Negad blew the trumpets. The screen began to pull back until the entire cosmos was in full view. In the air, a vast mist of green gas traveled on the waves of Negad's trumpet's notes. "Cool. Those look like green snakes moving across the sky," Miklehi threw out. "I hope the Abirs aren't scared of snakes," laughed Andrew. The children burst into laughter. Rashawn chuckled as well. "Children, the angelics do not fear snakes. Everything is good unless the Zood has possessed it." "Hey, more snakes! But these are red," added Miklehi. Rashawn was slightly confused. He thought hard on his family's teachings and his knowledge of the story of old. Why are there 2 different colors, he thought. The colors jarred his memory, and his scientific knowledge took over. "Those are not snakes. Or is allowing us to see how the sounds are moving. Remember, Nekemabed said that his call was dependent on Negad's. Well, if you watch, the red gases, what you call snakes, are being pulled by the green gases. Red moves a shorter distance than green in the pure light. The sound waves have attached to the light waves of the cosmos, which are different than the light waves of Elinthial. The trumpets have already been heard as one sound in Elinthial, but in the cosmos, they will be heard as 2 separate trumpets. The angelics will only recognize the call to assembly because it has a distinct sound, one they have been waiting for," explained Rashawn. Shortly after this explanation, the red gases attached themselves onto the tail end of the green. Each green trail simultaneously arrived at the 5 Stones of Fire, declaring the first trumpet's call for the assembly. The children's attention was distracted by the sound of sonic blasts breaking into the cosmos from Elinthial. The Abirs that were in Elinthial were headed straight for afar, followed by the other angelics that were there. The screen zoomed into afar where the events of the eternal tree were about to commence. From Elinthial, afar looked brighter. The waves swirled, twisting a string of white around the stone. Upon the trumpet's blast, in the twinkling of an eye, Nekemabed and Kohengal were in the waves. Nekemabed spread his spirit form over the waves and filled it as water fills a tub. Kohengol moved down to Afar and arrived at Shatar's palace door. The Malaks in the palace scurried to announce the arrival of the captain. The door was open. Kohengol was invited in and escorted directly to Shatar. Kohengol entered the room where Shatar had been looking out the window. "Are you ready, Shatar?" Shatar's eyes widened and his mouth opened, but no words came out. Shatar had never seen or separated before. Without introduction, he knew it was Kohengol, the heir, standing in front of him. "I will take that as a yes," Kohengol laughed and tenderly gestured Shatar out toward the sacred orchard. The two walked to the locked gate. Kohengol glanced at the lock and then back at Shatar. "You have done well guarding the orchard. It is my pleasure to allow you to be the first to walk through it." "I would be honored," responded Shatar, "but the call to assembly is not yet complete. How are we going to get in? I do not have the key." "Nekhamebed is taking care of that." When Shatar looked back down at the latch, the lock was gone. Kohengol lifted his hand. The gate opened. Shatar stepped over the threshold and stopped. The beauty of the orchard was greater than the replica on Olinthial. The grounds surrounding the trees were groomed with gardens of flowers, fruits, and vegetables. The aroma of the gardens wrapped around them. Their bodies absorbed the bouquet. Kohengol led Shatar under the branches of the olive, oak, and other trees into the center of the orchard where the eternal tree stood. Shatar's thoughts raced with wonder and excitement as they approached the center of the orchard. "What would you like to know?" Kohengol prodded Shatar, knowing his thoughts. "To know? I want to know if this is the fulfillment of the prophecy." "This is the beginning of the fulfillment of the prophecy, but for you it will be fulfilled in a moment." Shatar's brow lowered at Kohengol's response. Thinking he had to wait for the call's second trumpet sound, he looked up toward the heavens. "This is yours," Kohengol said as he handed him a piece of fruit from the eternal tree. Shatar looked back to Kohengol and took the perfectly formed fruit from his hand. It was cool to the touch. Shatar took a moment. There were no shadows among his internal light. He drew the fruit to his soft lips and bit. The refreshing fruit melted in his mouth. There was no need to chew. The simple fact that he had received it and bit into it was enough to complete the job. A warm sensation filled his body. Kohengol could see the glory of Or sealing Shatar's form. He smiled and welcomed Shatar to his eternal state. "Am I the first to be sealed? Do I look different? Because I definitely feel different. Your eternal light is sealed. You shine like me." Nekhamebed had completely enveloped the waves of Afar and moved about freely. Once Shatar had taken the fruit, Nekhamebed swooped down over the sacred orchard to the barrier wall and encircled it. Those from Olinthial who stood outside the wall could see a funnel cloud of fire lapping out of the clear blue sky like a comet humming toward the orchard. Nekhamebed's fire burned at an intensity that etched a path into the atmosphere where he had soared. This was only a portion of Nekhamebed's form, for he still fully occupied the waves. Knowing that the provision of the fruit had started with Shatar, he encircled around the bottom of the barrier wall. With his trail of fire, he moved quickly, spiraling upward 7 times, each time moving 3 degrees higher until the entire wall of flames could be seen. On the 7th lap, the elements that made up the barrier wall separated and scattered, returning to the fields of Afar. The sacred orchard stood open for the first time, ready to receive its invited guests. A great wind followed his fiery trail and refreshed all standing in his path. The funnel cloud of fire extinguished as it flashed back up into the waves. "Was that Nekhamebed?" Shatar asked in sheer delight. While none of the other angelics had seen or separated, they knew each of the individual's jobs and roles. "Yes, we are here together." "Is Jerahab here also? Will we get to see him? Are you giving everyone the fruit?" "Slow down, Shatar. We are always here with our creation. We are present in every place at all times. However, Jerahab's physical presence will not be here, though in spirit he is." Kohengol had to chuckle at the comment, especially after Nekhamebed's recent appearance. "With the walls gone, is there anything I need to do?" Shatar was clearly excited, ready to get to work. He looked around to the new arrivals from Olinthial who were entering the orchard and taking in the scenery. That was fast, but how did they get here? The call had not yet been completed. Shatar was shocked to see the four seraphim materialize beside Kohengal as he was talking to him. "Shatar, excuse me for a moment. I need to tend to the Elenthial crowd first." Kohengal then turned to the seraphim. Shatar and the others who had been in the great temple had only seen the seraphim from below, for they resided above Or's throne with their faces covered as they cried out accolades over Or. The four of them who were next to receive the fruit hovered around Kohengal. Kohengal instantly became larger to stand in proportion to their size. The first one, which had the face of a lion, took the fruit directly into his mouth. It was gone in one bite. The second one, which had the face of a man, took it from Kohengal's hand and ate it bite by bite. The third one, which had the face of an ox, received his piece of fruit after lightly sniffing it in Kohengal's hand. He then dropped it and ate it off the ground under the shade of the tree. The fourth one, which had the face of an eagle, plucked it out of Kohengal's hand, then flew a few feet higher. Instantly, the three rose to meet the fourth in the air. The four rang in unison, "It has begun." Kohengal nodded in agreement, for the events had been set in motion. The seraphim were declaring more than the other angelics understood. Their bodies were sealed as they shined forth Or's four main characteristics. Their very forms were reminders of what was and is to come. "You are as complete and whole as the day we created you. Go sing your praises at the throne. The cherubim will depart once you return. They must be next before the other angelics of Elenthial can be given the fruit," Kohengal directed. With a gesture and a word of praise, they transported back to Salem to the throne room of the great temple just above Jerahab, who sat there quietly waiting. The seraphim returned to their post and covered their feet and faces, for they were the only angelics who could see Or and his parts in full glory and pure light, which is why they reflected a golden color. The seraphim's bodies were a glowing, polished gold hue that had been bright to the eye even before the seraphim partook of the fruit. As Rashan read, the seraphim presented themselves before Jerahab. The children could clearly see each one's form. Each had 6 wings and feet like the Palos children's, yet their bodies were unique. "Rashan, what is going on? What are those things?" Aaron asked, perplexed. Although the seraphim's appearance had fascinated the boys, Rashan realized the entire scene had concerned the girls. He took a break from reading to explain. "The seraphim are not like anything we know," Rashan stated. Miklehi interrupted. "I know what an ox, eagle, man, and lion are, but I don't get those other parts." "Let me finish, Miklehi. The seraphim's body looks so strange to us because we have nothing on our world that compares. The only reason you have been able to identify the other angelics is because they have comparisons on our afar. For example, Miklehi pointed out that he identified an ox, eagle, man, and lion. You must understand that everything we know is only a shadow of what we are seeing now. The fact that they have colorful scales of gems that only glow as gold to us, except when in Kohengal's direct presence, tells us that we are not able to see all the forms even here, unless Or has arranged it. My forefathers shared with me that the seraphim were fiery serpents. However, they do not look like what we call a serpent. Perhaps this is a secret we will learn as the book of Tabnethiod unfolds before our eyes." The seraphim had returned to their post, and the children watched the cherubim travel away from the great temple. There was something different about the way they moved. The screen showed them moving in a normal motion, yet the surroundings were speeding past as a blur. Rashan paused to add, "Or is allowing us to see the multi-dimensional realms. It is like going backstage. That is why the screen looks so strange." "Oh yeah, I see it. But what is that big spotted wheel rotating under them? Their legs?" asked Mia. "Gross," Megan blurted out. "That's not gross, that's cool. Those spots look like eyes," Morris retorted. "Hold on, children. I know this is an adventure, but let's keep it orderly. Mia, those are not their legs. Each cherub travels with a companion, an ophan, at all times. The ophanim sit under the cherubim when they are around the base of Or's throne. Remember how the great temple hovered above Elenthial? Well, the ophanim sit under it and cut through all the heavens. The spots on their eyes are all-seeing. However, the other angelics are not aware of their presence." Rashan hesitated before continuing. He wanted to make sure the children understood the concept of the cherubim and the Ophanim. "I thought that everything moved in all 10 dimensions, Connor stated. Everything in the first age can move in all 10 dimensions. However, I do not think that those are the only dimensions that Or uses," Rashawn said. He wanted to help them recognize what they were seeing without complicating it. "We recently saw the gray mist in Sar's palace, but none of the angelics there were able to see it. Or is able to combine the dimensions in ways that are far beyond our ability to comprehend. It would be similar to the way we understand sound frequencies. There are frequencies that we cannot hear, but a dog can. Just because we cannot hear it does not mean that it does not exist. We are very fortunate Or is allowing us to peek behind these realms. It is our duty to hold on to what he is showing us and to apply these clues appropriately. Now, while the screen is paused, look at each Ophanim's wheel shape. It can expand and contract depending on the task at hand. Let us return to the book so we can see what happens next." Rashawn went back to reading. Nekemabed met the 4 cherubim at the entrance of the cosmos with instructions. "There is an exact order for you to follow when addressing Kohengal in the orchard. The Ophanim need to be above you and still connected to the throne room of the great temple." The Ophanim received the instruction. They expanded their forms and traded positions with the cherubim, moving from under them to above them. Nekemabed watched the Ophanim shift positions, then spoke again. "You need to replicate the same order and procession you hold around the throne. You will each face Kohengal from your assigned places, reflect the seraphim faces, and partake of the fruit from that position." As this was said, the cherubim moved, each turning toward their proper direction, east, south, west, and north. Several of the children gasped when the cherubim repositioned. They could see multiple faces. "How many are there?" yelled Joshua. Rashawn looked up. He was fully aware of what the cherubim looked like and was a little surprised that the children had not anticipated their appearance. "There are only 4 of them, plus Sar, who is not on the screen," assured Rashawn. He hopped off his stool, moved toward the screen, and took a moment to study the frozen images, including the details of the Ophanim. "Do you see a pattern being established here? We have seen these faces already. These are the same as the seraphim. The seraphim only had 1 face each. These each have 4. Rashawn was taken back by Joshua's strong interruption. Yes, they do each have 4 faces, but they all have the same 4 faces as the seraphim. Remember, they are a culmination of all the angelics. Why doesn't Sar look like them? Joshua needed clarification. If he's the prince of the cherubim. This is a great question, Rashawn replied. I am surprised no one has asked that before. Sar is able to switch from one face to another. He is a perfect mix between the seraphim and cherubim. You see, he can choose his representation and hold that form. The other cherubim reveal all 4 faces at the same time. Sar chooses the form of a man probably because he works so closely with the Malaks. Of course, that is speculation on my part. There is another difference between Sar and the other cherubim. The cherubim that are around Or's throne travel in a unique way. Whichever face you see when they are traveling is a hint about the mission they are on. Rashawn looked one last time at the screen. He strolled back to the stool, hopped on it, and then proceeded to read, setting the screen back into motion. Nekemabed continued instructing the cherubim. Kohengal will address each of you simultaneously. This will allow you to partake together as one unit. Then your presence is demanded back at the throne. In a blink of an eye, the cherubim materialized as the seraphim did around Kohengal in the sacred orchard. Their wings were neatly folded behind them in 2 rows, and their faces alternated in direction, just as Nekemabed had instructed. Kohengal faced each one. Shatar elbowed as Miklehi had stopped next to him as he witnessed Kohengal presenting the fruit to the cherubim. I have never seen, Shatar stuttered. He looks like a 4-sided carving, the Malak spoke over Shatar. Kohengal presented a frontal stance with fruit in his hand. He simultaneously handed it to each one of them. To onlookers, Kohengal had duplicated himself, but in reality he reflected back the qualities of each of the 4 faces facing him, only giving the illusion of duplication. The cherubim departed once their provision was completed. Next to take of the fruit was the remaining Alenthial population. Nekemabed gave the angelics precise instructions for the order of events that were to take place. Each of them was to partake of the fruit and then return to their post and wait for Kohengal's return to Alenthial.